Okay. Hi, Latrice. It is good to talk to you, and thank you so much for agreeing to let us interview you, and also thanks to the Living Legacy Foundation for allowing this to happen. Today's show is about something that's very dear to a lot of people, and when we think about organ donation, a lot of people, especially in the African American community, they really don't know much about it and how it works. So today, you're going to be able to give us some information that will make sense of it all, will help us to understand that it isn't anything that's a big mystery, but it's something that's very, very important. So, Latrice, I understand you're a community outreach specialist.
Yeah, yes.
And
Hi,
as
Kelly. Thank you for having us, but yes.
okay, and as a specialist, what is it that you actually do?
I actually go out into the community focusing on minority communities and faith-based communities, talking about the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation. It's very important that we help people understand the process and equip people with the correct information, not the myths, but the facts about donation.
Oh, okay. What do you feel is the reason behind this disparity in our community? Why do you think African Americans don't donate as frequently as maybe in other cultures?
There is a lot of medical mistrust in our community, and especially here in Baltimore, in addition to some historic mistrust with the Tuskegee project, is here we have the Henrietta Lacks story that came out several years ago. Some people knew about it from years ago. Some people are just learning about it. So there's that mistrust in the medical community that my life isn't going to be saved if I'm signed up as an organ donor. I'm not going to be taken care of that well if I'm an organ donor. So those are some of the things we face when talking to people about donation in the process.
Okay, so what's the first thing that happens? What does a person need to do when if they want to be a participant?
We encourage people to talk to your family about organ donation. You can go to the NBA to sign up. You can sign up on the website. But in the community, a lot of times we hear people that say they just aren't comfortable with the donation process. So we share that process with them a little bit, the behind the scenes part of donation. That Living Legacy is not the person at the hospital taking care of you, that there's the doctors there and it's their primary role to take care of you and save your life. And then once they do that, then they will call Living Legacy to say, hey, we have a potential donor here. And that's when we step in. But we're not there working on you. It's a separate organization. A lot of times, once people understand that it's a separate organization that comes in, and especially for the donation part, a lot of times they will sign up, or sometimes they just want additional information before making that decision.
Okay, so I see you have another big component of what you do is called the Decision Project. What is that?
The Decision Project. So a couple of years ago, maybe 2016, I believe, we had some data pulled that showed that in one particular area of Baltimore, zip codes 21215 and 21216 had the lowest number of people signed up as a designated organ donor. And then someone actually in that organization had some data pulled that listed the number of people waiting by zip code. And it turns out zip code 21215 had the same number of people, the most number of people, waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. So we started, we went to Sinai, which is the hospital that's in that area, talked to their community department to find out what's going on in their neighborhoods that we can kind of help out with. Are there any things going on that we could kind of help with education part? We ended up meeting with a lot of leaders in that community. We ended up talking to pastors in that area and just forming a partnership that we can come together and work on educating people in that community about the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation.
Okay, so it's, I know it's important. So where does the process begin, or the process of donation? Do you have to have it written? I think when you go get your driver's license, they ask you, are you an organ donor, or do you want to be? How does that work?
When you go to the MVA, they do ask you, would you like to be an organ donor? And at that point, you can say yes or you can say no. But once you do that, we really encourage you to go home and have a conversation with your family. A lot of times we don't like to talk about end of life things that might happen to us. We just want to, make that decision to be a donor and then never tell anybody. But it's important that you discuss that decision with your loved ones, with your family members. That way there's a conversation back and forth. You get to see what they would like to happen to them, and then they know in turn what you would like to happen to you if something was to happen to you. Once that happens, then we hope that and we pray that nothing happens to you before it's your time. But when and if something does happen to an individual, they're in the hospital, say someone's in a car accident and they're in the hospital, it's the job and the role of that hospital to take care of that person, save their life. And once they feel like they haven't, they've done everything that they could possibly do to help save that person, that's when they call in the living legacy. They call us in, we assess the person, we look to see if they're already an organ donor, and if they are an organ donor, it's still a conversation with the family. So it's not that if you sign up, we don't talk to your family. We still have a conversation with your family about the donation.
Okay, so, and I'll go personal wise. I had a relative to pass away, and while we were at the hospital, we weren't allowed to remove the body because they wanted to know if we wanted to donate, any of, their organs. Um, do you have someone who's actually stationed at the hospital, or do you they call you to say we have someone who has passed? What's that process like?
We have a 24-hour call center that all the hospitals know the number, and they call us. And then once that call is made to the 24-hour call center, they then kind of triage the call to see if that person is in fact suitable for donation. Once they triage the call, then they have the next set of people that may go on site, which is our organ recovery staff. They may go on site and kind of medically kind of look at the patient to see if they are suitable for donation. And let me back up a little bit. So there are two ways that you become a donor. Sometimes people think, well, somebody is shot on the street that they can become an organ donor. But in fact, you have to be in the hospital on a ventilator, meaning that your brain dead is not the same as being in a coma. It's irreversible, but your heart is still beating. Your heart is beating, it's pumping blood through your body to help keep those organs viable for transplantation. The other form of that you can be a donor is non-heart beating donor, and that's when a family decides to make the decision to pull their loved one off of that ventilator. And if that loved one dies within a certain time frame, then that person can go on to be an organ donor, but there are only certain organs that they can recover with that process. But the family, like you said, in your case, the family is still involved in the process. We talk to the family throughout the process. We have a group on our team, our family services department. It's their role to come to the hospital as well, to be there with the family. They make the ask of the family. I always say that they have the hardest job in our organization, because they're talking to a family at the worst time of their life. You just lost a loved one. Who wants to, and we hear this in the community, who wants somebody asking for something during this horrific time in their life? So we have that staff, their special is grief. So they specialize in grief, and they are there to support the family throughout the process. If the family decides, say the person was not signed up as an organ donor, if the family decides that no, we don't want John to go on to become an organ donor, he wasn't signed up, so we decide that we don't want to do that, then we still stay there and support the family as long as they need supporting. If we go on with the process, we're there as long as the family is there, as long as the family feel that they need the support of Living Legacy, we have somebody that's there with them. We continue to follow the family for 2 years after the donation process as well.
The Donor Service Center is the hub of everything that goes on in the organization.
We're involved in almost every single case.
We're like the heart of the organization.
So at any given time, you can be working on one case for the day or for a part of the day, or you can be working up to 4 or 5 cases. It just depends on the timing, what the cases are, whether it's a local donor, whether it's a import case coming in, whether it's a tissue case that you're following to potentially see if the family is interested in donation.
Once a patient has passed or is on a ventilator, we get that call from the hospitals, and basically we evaluate to see if they would be suitable for organ and tissue donation.
At any time, we can get a case where we need to activate our entire team to fly from point A to point B, and that involves arranging jets for transportation or helicopters, coordinating with the transplant centers and the tissue typing labs, as well as the hospital coordinators and pathologists, and getting everyone on the same page so that everybody's where they have to be when it comes time to activate them for their part of the donation process.
We would then work with our organ recovery coordinators to facilitate donor management, to assess the initial suitability, if the patient would be a potential organ donation, if they're designated, and then if they are, then we would walk them through the process as far as working with the family services team.
It's fast-paced, it's never the same thing, the same day, every day. You're always doing something different, you're always learning different things.
It takes a lot of patience, a lot of ability to multitask. Since we are the center of the organization, we're constantly juggling a bunch of different tasks from all different areas.
I feel the most rewarding part of our job is that knowing at the end of every shift that we've really contributed to making a difference in someone's life.
I get to go home every day and know that I made a difference in the lives of someone else. It's great to be able to work with a group of individuals who will go above and beyond to make a difference in the lives of our donor families and the patients that we work with. And every time someone gets transplanted, I think the whole Donor Services Center just kind of celebrates with them.
What are families permitted to do?
If a person is already designated as an organ donor, the family isn't permitted to say, no, they don't want John to become an organ donor. But if a person, John didn't designate himself, and the family may be approached by Living Legacy just because John looks like he can help save 8 lives, then the family can say yes and the family can say no. I've heard in the community families say that they were approached, but they just didn't know what their loved one wanted. And they said no, but still they didn't know if that was the right answer to say. So that's why that conversation is very important with your family. Even if your loved one decides that, hey, I'm not ready yet, then still having that conversation, you know what the decision will easily be if you're met with making that decision for someone in your family.
Okay, so what is the limit on organs?
When you say limit, you mean like
in terms of how long? I know they said if you have like a heart has to be transported within a number of hours, or certain maybe other parts of the body can be refrigerated or frozen. What's that process like?
So for the organs, the kidneys can stay outside the body the longest. The heart and lung may be the most crucial part, so they cannot stay out the body that long before they can be transplanted. So I think the time frame for maybe a heart and lung may be 4 to 7 hours, and a kidney can go within 24 to 48 hours before it can be transplanted into someone. And on the back end, as the organ recovery coordinators at the hospital assessing the patient, they're drawing lab work and tests are run on the donor. At the same time, our 24-hour call center is matching that particular donor to people that are on the waiting list to see who matches that person, contacting their surgeons to say, hey, we have a potential kidney for your loved one, for your patient, or we have a potential heart for your patient. And that goes on till all the organs are placed. And there are 6 major organs that can be placed. You can save up to 8 lives. Just one person like myself can save up to 8 lives.